So, one second, let me start. Yeah, so do you have any questions from last time? If not, let me start with lecture 4. So any questions? Are you there? Can you hear me? Can you?
Yes, sir.
You can see my screen also, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me start with some more syntax for Python. So last time we saw even more of these strings and lists, correct? And these are example of sequences, correct? So and we saw that strings are immutable and lists are mutable, correct? This part is clear to you, correct? So today we are going to see a version of lists which is immutable, okay? And you would, so tuple is an immutable sequence. So you can write t is equal to a comma 35 comma whatever something, correct? So this is immutable. You cannot change its the value of this. So if you do this and you say t0 is equal to b, then this raises an error, correct? Are you with me?
Yes,
So
sir.
this is exactly like a list. It's a list of containing 3 items. The only thing is that it's immutable. So that's the major difference. Major difference with lists, correct? So if you want to in fact create this tuple where b replaces a, you would reassign this. So you would say is to t0, no, sorry, you would say it is equal to b comma t1 comma t2, correct? So this would create a new tuple consisting of the fields t1 and t2 and the field which you have added, the t0, the 0th field, and that is assigned to t. Okay. Now, now we are going to see a use for tuples. Correct? Why do we need the tuple data type? That's what we are going to see now. Okay. So before that, so we are going to see what are called dictionaries. Correct? So what is a dictionary? So first, let us see what a list is. Correct? So a list is a map from integers, actually positive integers or negative depending on how you interpret them, to arbitrary to values, basically to arbitrary values, correct? So it will take a list L is equal to V0, V1, V2 and so on. This is equivalent to L of, so it maps L of 0, it maps 0 to V0, and L maps 1 to V1. So this is a way to think about it. It's a function that maps integers to arbitrary values. Correct? Now, so why restrict ourselves to just integers? So dictionaries are ways to generalize the things that you map to, correct? So you write something like dictionary D is equal to, and this is within curly braces. So remember, lists are within square braces, tuples are within round braces, and this is within curly braces. You write D is equal to something colon else, and then 3 colon 5. So what does it mean? This is a map that takes D or something is evaluates to else. On the other hand, D of 3 evaluates to 5. Correct? So you can see that it's a natural generalization of lists. But one thing is important, that the key values, these are called the key values. No, not this, sorry. This 3. These are called key values, which are mapped to, so a dictionary is a map from keys to values. Correct? Are you with me?
Yes, sir. So if we use something twice in the first, then will it raise an error, like something else, something colon else, and something colon 5?
That's a good question to which I do not know the answer, but if you do an explicit assignment, it will just change the value.
Okay.
So within the same initialization, you'll have to try it out. I do not know the answer to this. I think the second value should persist, but I'm not sure. Okay.
Okay.
So can somebody try it and tell me?
Sir, what was the question?
The question was, suppose I do D of 1 colon 1 comma 1 colon 2. Will we get an error?
Sir, I think the second value is persists.
The second value persists.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so you write, you initialize a dictionary by in these curly braces, and then you can also, of course, have an empty dictionary like this, correct? And you can use tuples inside this. So you can say D of 5 comma 6 is equal to 4, correct? So this is one place where tuples are used. Tuples are, so why do we need tuples here? Because whatever goes into the key value must be immutable. You cannot take a list and make it into a key, for example, correct? So all the examples that we have taken, this is a string, so it's immutable. We have taken, we have taken this integer, which is immutable, and so keys must be immutable, correct? That's why tuples are useful. You cannot use a list here. Do you get
So
me?
what is a key? Something that has to be mapped?
Yes. So you associate a value. These are also called associative arrays. So you associate a value with a key, correct? A unique value with a key. So whenever you produce the key, it will return back the value. The dictionary will return back the value. It's like a actual dictionary where you give it a word and you get back the meaning, correct? So there's a unique map from the from a word in the dictionary to its meaning. Correct? So dictionaries are of course mutable. Key values, keys of let's call it key only. Keys of a dictionary are immutable. And the values stored in a dictionary can be mutable. So you can say D is equal to this, and D0 is equal to 1, 2, 3. This you can do, correct? Or D whatever is equal to whatever. Correct? So is this clear? Am I making sense? All these assignments are simultaneously possible. Yeah. Okay.
Sir,
Tell me.
sorry, I don't like understand what a key is. I mean, like, how do you use this in a program? I don't.
So we will
No.
come to that. We will come to that. But it's
Okay.
used to associate values with some keys. Correct? So you can see that it's a direct extension of lists. In the list, you are restricted to using the integers as keys.
Yeah.
Or naturals as keys, naturals plus 0 as keys, correct? And so if you want to have some underlying semantics for the keys, if you want to associate some meaning with keys or keys, then you use this. And we will see how it's a very useful data structure. And so
is it possible to change the order of elements in dictionary?
There is no ordering of elements in a dictionary. The ordering is arbitrary.
Okay, so it's in whatever order we defined it originally.
Yes. So if you print a dictionary, you will see how to print a dictionary. If you make a list out of a dictionary, for example, correct, you will get the elements in some arbitrary order. Okay, there's no guarantee that the thing that you inserted first will be produced first and so on. So internally, dictionaries are stored as some data structure, and that is kind of breaks the order in which they are inserted or things like that. All we know is that so firstly, how would you what is the ordering between 0 and whatever? That does not make sense, correct? You cannot compare 0 with whatever. Correct? These are of different data types. So in a dictionary, you cannot expect order between the various entries.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So so one use of a dictionary is that you want to suppose you are given a list of words, correct? Okay, and you want to count the frequency of each word, correct? So schematically, what you would do is to say count is equal to an empty dictionary, and when you see a word W, so I will not write the entire code. When you see a word W, you do count of W is equal to count of W plus 1. Correct? Now you might, is the basic idea clear? So you will get the frequency of the word W after you've gone through the list. Modulo the uncomfortable fact that you would have to check whether W, what happens when W occurs for the first time? Correct? Correct?
Yes.
So there are other ways to access dictionaries. You can do something like dictionary dot. So I should not write dictionary. I mean, I should write in this example, you would do count dot keys, and that will give you the keys occurring in the dictionary in some order. Correct? Similarly, you can do count.values, and that will give you the frequencies that occur in the dictionary in some order. Correct? The values occurring in the dictionary in some order. Correct? So how would you write it? So suppose somebody gives you a source of W. So for example, so I will not write that part of the code, but if suppose you are writing just a function add W, correct? So if W in count dot keys, correct? Then what do? You do count W is equal to count, you increment the count, else you initialize the count to 1. Correct?
Excuse me, sir.
Tell me.
Sir, I didn't understand how the addition actually works with the dictionary.
Addition, so count W, there is no addition here. It is just no addition in the dictionary. It's no, what do you mean by addition?
Like sir, in the initial part where they describe count of equals
This
in
one.
the dictionary.
Correct?
So then how are we adding this? I mean, count W equals count W plus 1.
So count W is just a value stored in associated with the so W is a, let's say, a word, correct? Is a string, correct? So count of W is a integer that we store associated with W.
So sir, shouldn't we initialize the count first?
So that's what is done here. If W in count.keys, then you do this. Otherwise, you initialize count of W to 1.
Okay, so I get it now. Okay.
Correct?
Yes, I get
And
it.
there are more efficient ways of doing that, but I'll not go there. Correct?
Yeah, okay, sir.
Right. In subsequent times, we will see how to use exceptions, etc., to do this. Correct? So
Sir,
tell me.
so I didn't fully understand where W is coming from. Like, is that in a list or?
No, so W is a keyword, is a string. For example, in our example, where it is coming from is you can write a whole program. This is just a function that you use from in a larger piece of code.
So W, like the string, is in something you input, and then this function.
For example, you can write that. Yeah, so that's a good example. You say W is equal to, so for one, W is equal to input, enter a string. This would prompt you for this would print, enter a string and wait for you to input something, correct? And W would take that value, and now you would say add W. Correct? So this would,
no, so like when you say add W, like I don't see how count keys and all that is related to what you're inputting. Like,
so count is an array that must be defined, is a dictionary that must be defined when this statement is encountered. So before, so you would say something like count is equal to this thing, W is equal to input, enter a string, add W. Now, what is your question? Tell me again.
like I don't see. Okay, so you input something, and
Correct.
then what this function does is it counts the number of.
It adds this to our data structure called count, to the dictionary called count. So you have initialized this count to be the empty dictionary. Now, suppose you enter a word alpha, correct? Then it would say count. The first statement, it would go here in add W. So you would call, it would call add alpha, and you would check whether alpha is in count.keys. This here, correct? Alpha, initially the dictionary is empty, so it would not be in count.keys. Instead, it would go here and set the value of count alpha to be 1. Correct?
Yeah.
And now suppose I give you a sequence which is like, you input a sequence which looks like alpha, alpha, something, correct? So every time it would, the first time it would take this alpha and set count of alpha to be 1, correct? Here, correct?
Yeah.
Next time over, it would increment the value of count of alpha and make it 2. And then you get this something, you would say count of something is equal to 1, correct? And so on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is just a program fragment, and yeah, correct?
Sir,
So, tell me.
sir, this count dot keys. What is count dot keys, sir? Is it a list?
It is an iterable. It is like an iterable. So you can go over, you can say, like here I wrote for W in count of keys. So you would, it would successively iterate over the keys contained in count and return one of them at a time. So W would be initialized to each of the keys contained in count.
Yes, sir. So it's not a list. You can't
It's not a
call it.
list.
Okay. Sir.
It's not a list. You can make it into a list by saying list. You can say list of D dot keys or whatever, count dot keys.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
So it is like the same thing that we saw earlier, range 1, 10. This is not a list, but you can make it into a list by saying list of range 1, 10. Similarly, you can say list of count dot keys, and that would return list. Yeah. Correct?
Yes, sir. Sure.
I think that is the case. I think keys returns this thing. Yeah. So similarly, values is this count dot values returns the values occurring in the dictionary in some order. Correct? Notice the order is not fixed. The order depends on how they are stored inside the dictionary, which might be implemented as a hash table or a binary search tree, something, correct? probably as a hash table, correct? Okay, so that said, if you want a sorted version of keys, you can do you can use L.sort. So you can do L is equal to list, and then you do L.sort or sorted L, the sorted version of L, something like this, to get the keys in sorted order. Correct? And this assumes that the keys are themselves comparable, correct? So if you do something like, if you have in count, count something is equal to 1 and count 1 is equal to 2, and you sort the keys, you will get an error, because you cannot compare a string with a value, with the integer, correct? So is this thing clear? Are you with me? Questions?
So could you repeat
Tell me.
what you said about count something equals 1 and then count 1 equals 2? I didn't.
So if you say count something equal to 1, correct? Then and count 1 is equal to 2, correct? So what does count dot keys look like? This would contain something and 1, correct? Correct. Now suppose you say you make a list out of it. So list count dot keys, list count dot keys. This would give this list. And now if you try to sort this list, you would not get anything meaningful. You would get an error, in fact, because the list entries are not comparable.
Okay, yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So so that said, let me go back a little bit and talk about the structure of a Python program, correct? So here, why I'm saying that is, so, okay, let's take this fragment. Let's take this fragment. Okay, so correct. So now when you basically you have defined a function, correct? You defined a function here, and then you have initialized some variable, and you have used that you have used that variable inside this function, correct? So the point is, see, at this point, syntactically, when you write this program, count, if you read sequentially, count would not be defined here. But when it is executed, count would be defined when you call add for the first time, correct? So in general, if you have a function like def f something, def g something, and then you write the code to execute, so which calls f, g, whatever, correct? So when you execute f, for example, it can call g, even though f is defined before g. Do you follow me? Somebody to which this is not clear? So mutual recursion is allowed. F can call G, G can call F. The only thing is when the code is executed, then both F and G must be defined. So let's take an example. Def F n if n %2 equal to 0, n is equal to some trivial code. Return what should I return? Something which encounters gn minus 1, correct? Something like, I don't know, 2 into gn minus 1, correct? Else return, let's say, n, correct? And you write the function gn as if n %2 equal to 1, return two into fn minus 1. This is fairly arbitrary, but else return n, correct? And then you say, then you call at the end int n is equal to input, int input, and print f of n, correct? So this is a piece of code, correct? Which uses, f uses g, g uses f. When f, so now suppose you call f10, what will happen? When you call f10, it would go to this part of the code and start executing sequentially. So if 10 is divisible by 2, it will return 2 into, so this would be equal to, this would evaluate to 2 into G9, and then this would be, this would evaluate to, G9 would evaluate to 2 into F8, and so on, correct? So this would essentially give you 2 to the power 10. On the other hand, if you give F11, then it would just print 11, correct? So this is just an inane piece of code to illustrate the fact that mutual recursion is allowed. The only thing is that at runtime, whatever is all the values should be defined when the code is executed, correct? Am I clear?
The left and won't ever stop, right?
Sorry?
So why will F10 ever stop?
F11 stop, because it will come here.
No, so
check
F10.
F10, very good point, very good point. So we should give a base case. If n is less than equal to 0, return 1 or something. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. You made a good point. If n is less than equal to 0, return 1. Correct? So then it will stop. Correct? So I forgot the base case, and that is a valid point. So then tell me.
Sir, the line int n equal to int input, is there a syntax like that, or is it just like?
No, so there is a syntax like that. You can give input and then optional string, any string you want, correct? Or you can just give input and this thing, and this will wait for you to input something, correct? And then when you int basically converts a particular string to integer. So if you say, if you input, so on input, so if I write input, please input something, correct? And you on input so you will get this would evaluate to please input something, and then it would wait here. The cursor would wait. If you enter 5, then it would return 5 to this. So it would return the string 5, and then this int thing would convert this int 5 will evaluate to 5, and then you can use that, correct?
Sir, no, I meant to ask on the left hand side, int n is there, like.
Oh, sorry. That does not make sense. Sorry. Good point. Sorry. So my mistake. So int converts string to int, correct? And it can do this for other, it might be overloaded to give it for other types also, but at least for strings it does that. And input is used for inputting a value, a single value. Okay. So then tell me. Any questions, comments? So it's good that you are stopping me with mistakes that I'm making. That's good. And yeah, so I welcome that. Yeah. So more questions? Okay. So the crucial point is that functions must be defined before they are used. And this also happens for any values, in fact. Correct? Meaning, not values, names must be defined, must be. So this happens not only for functions, but for any names. A name must have a value before that before that name is used, correct? So now we come to something quite interesting, even though you have seen it in Haskell, which is the concept of map and filter, correct? So what is map? So map is what is called a higher order function. It takes as argument, map takes a function and a list as argument. That's why it's called a higher order, because it doesn't deal with first order things, deals with second order things, which are functions and lists. And map f comma l. So if your list consists of like value 0, value 1 till value n, this it maps value 0 to f of value 0 and so on till f of value n. Correct? So it maps each value to the image of that value under the function. Correct? And again,
So over here, it somehow works like a dictionary, like the mapping.
It's in some sense, no,
I
you
mean,
don't associate the, you don't associate
okay,
the
yeah,
value
yeah.
with the,
Okay, okay.
with its image. You just create a iterable. So this is not exactly a list. This is an iterable. And you can convert it to a list by saying list of map f comma l as usual. Correct? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other thing that is this thing is filter a predicate p comma l. Correct? So this predicate returns true or false. Is a Boolean valued predicate. Correct? I mean, all predicates are Boolean valued. I mean, it's a Boolean valued function. Correct? So, for example, you can say filter is even range 0, 100. What will this give? We'll have to define is even for that, but let's define is even. Is even is what you would expect in is even I return I percentage 2 equal to 0. Correct? So what does filter is even this? What would it return? It would basically return range 0, 100, 2. I mean, something which is equivalent to this. It would filter out range 0, 100 and just keep the things that are divisible by 2. Do you see my point?
Yes, sir. So range 0 to 100 is not a list, right?
Is not a list. Neither
so
is range 0, 100, 2. Nor is correct. So
no,
and
sir, just clarifying. So like I think you said before that it acts on if the input
I
is a
think
function
filter
and
is also so filter is also this thing, correct? Also gives an iterable. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it is an iterable, correct? So, and there is a way map and filter are often used together. So, for example, if you want to write, so if you want to map a function f for a subset of, so how do you write a set? So the set builder notation, what does it do? So you say x such that you generate x. I mean, so how do you do it? You say
something like this component to be treated as
exactly. So set builder notation, you would say x belongs to 1, 100 such that and x is and is even x. So, and you want to print instead of x, suppose you do want to do x squared and is even x. Correct? So this part you can do via map. This part is the generation part. And this is the part which corresponds to filter. Correct? So how would you write it? In Python, you would write this as x times x, so x times x, for x in range 100 or 1 comma 100. So you want to translate this exact thing, 1 comma 100. If x percentage 2 equal to 0, correct? Correct. So this is this gives a list. Correct. This is a list.
Is that asterisk?
Hmm?
Is that asterisk x after that?
Sorry, which one? This x, yeah, x times x.
Oh, okay.
X multiplied by x. You could have anything. I mean, you could instead of this say x plus 1 for x in range. That was just some arithmetic function that, correct? This is just any expression, any function of x. Correct? So is it clear that so this x plus 1 basically maps the plus 1 to all the elements of the list of the iterable that you get when you filter out the even elements from this. So basically this will return the odd elements, correct? Odd elements between 2 and 101. Or something like that. Correct? Am I making sense? So I should change this also to x plus 1. Correct? So this list comprehension, like it's called, correct? That's what it's called in Haskell also, correct? What is it called in Haskell, this idea? Anybody?
Same thing.
List comprehension.
List comprehension. Okay. So in Python, this list comprehension is very useful to initialize, for example, multi-dimensional arrays. So if you want to create an array of a 3 cross 3 array initialized to zeros, correct? One way to do it is buggy way is to say that x is equal to 0, 0, 0, y is equal to x, x, x. Correct? Why is this buggy? Because if you change y0, 0 to say 1, what would be the new y? Tell me.
1 0 0 1 0 0 1 0 0.
Yes. So you would get y0, y10 would also change to 1. y10 and y20 would also change to 1. Why? Why is that so? Because all of them are identified with the
All
same.
of the
Yeah, these are all x's, correct? So they are identified. So if you draw the picture for them, you would get, what does y point to? Y points to this thing where there are 3 elements and each of them points to the same element, which is 0, 0, 0, correct? So now if you change this to 1, that will be reflected in all 3, correct? So this is a buggy way to initialize a 3x3 array with not array, 3x3 list of lists with zeros. Correct? So how would you do it? The naive way to do it is to list out all the 9 things. But there is a very simple and nice way of doing it, which is just to say 0 for range for what am I writing? For j in range 3, this would create an array for I in range 3. So what would this do? Tell me. If I say y is equal to this, what would happen? So yi would be initialized to, so as I runs from 0 to 3, 0 to 2, yi runs is initialized to an array of size 3, correct? So yi would get an element which is like 0, 0, 0, and because we are not using the same variable, these yi's will be different, correct? So y0 will be different from y1, will be different from y2. They will have no elements in common, correct? Are you with me?
Yes,
Sir?
sir.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I didn't fully understand the syntax. So you're saying as I goes from 0 to 2, what's happening? Like, how is this constructing the array?
So let's look back. List comprehension says some function f of x for x in some iterable, correct? X in something. If some predicate is true, correct? So here, in fact, we don't have filter at all, correct? We just have so concentrate on this part for I in range 3, correct? So it would for I in range 3, as I runs in this 0 to 3, it would replace that thing by this object, correct? And what would this do? For j in range 3, it would create it would have a 0, correct?
Yeah.
So this would be a list. This would evaluate every time you evaluate it. This would evaluate to 0, 0, 0, correct?
No, I mean, why is it giving it thrice? I didn't fully understand.
Range 3. Range 3, na? Range 3 means that you are running from 0 over 0, 1, 2.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes.
So that's why it's happening. So more questions? Okay, so now we move on to another very small subtopic, which we started last time, but which we didn't get to complete. Yeah, tell me.
Sir, very sorry. Sir, so instead of 0, it could be
Anything.
any expression of j, right? Like j square.
Yes.
And we'll print out 0, 1, 4, and then 0, 1, 4, 0, 1, 4. That'll be the array.
So let's do it. So for j in range 3, you would get 0, 1, 4, and yes. So you would get this, yes, 0, 1, 4, and then 0, 1, 4, and 0, 1, 4, and these this would be yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so can we also write j into I?
Yes, you can write j into I. Yes. No, 1 second. No, that. So I don't think so. So just write out. I would think it's not possible because I think is not defined when it is used.
Oh, okay.
But let's try it out. Can somebody try it out?
So I think it gives an error.
It gives an error.
It says invalid syntax.
Okay. So yeah, so you can only use the a function of.
Well, it's working for me.
Yeah,
Is it?
it's working for me as well. I plus j worked for me.
I plus j works. Okay, which means so let's try to decipher why does it work.
So I think because when we're trying to figure out what that inner list should be, we already do have I because we're already like sort of
Yes,
iterating over there. So
that's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. So it is like this is the outer loop and this is the inner loop, correct? So it's just put in a way that it comes later, and yeah, so you're correct that it should this should work fine. Correct? Is that okay? Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah. So we are going to talk about functions with optional arguments. Okay. So for example, you have the range function, correct? You can say range, so ijk, that is the complete this thing, correct? But you can also say, actually that's not a good example. Maybe I should not give this example. So you can say, let's take another example, which is int, int, correct? So int 3 outputs 3. On the other hand, int a gives an error because there is no digit corresponding to a. But on the other hand, if you do this in hexadecimal, you specify the radix here, then you get whatever, 10. Correct? So you can, this 16 is an optional argument that by default is set to 10. I should say b is equal to 11 to dispel all this thing. So what I mean is that the definition of int is presumably int value comma radix, and there is an optional setting which is radix equal to 10, correct? And then it interprets. So if you don't specify the radix, it will interpret it as 10, and if you do specify it, then it will use that radix instead, correct?
So how exactly is this working, like int b16? I think it's interpreting b as a digit, as a hexadecimal,
As a
digit.
hexadecimal digit.
Oh, okay.
So 0 to 9, and then A, B, C, D, E, F, correct? Those are the hexadecimal digits. We're interpreting this as 11. I mean, this as this B as the 11th.
So if I enter ABC, suppose. So it will just
It will do the corresponding. You can write it in hexadecimal, and then
so it will give me a base 10 answer.
It will give a base 10 answer.
Okay.
Correct. Okay.
So why did
so
it show error in int A? So
int
their
A
radix
because
is 10.
radix is 10, and A in radix 10 does not make sense.
Okay.
Correct. In decimal it doesn't make sense, so that's why it gave an error. Correct.
Okay.
So in general, you can define for a function f, you can say, so suppose this takes arguments a, then you can give some optional arguments like b is equal to whatever c is equal to else. Correct. So now if you call f 100, this will evaluate to automatically to 100 comma whatever comma else. Correct. On the other hand, f 100 comma something would evaluate to f 100 comma something comma else. Correct.
So what if we give int inside quotes 9 and comma 8, then radix will change to 8.
Yes, and that
so
would flag an error. No, 9 will flag an error.
Oh, okay.
Correct, because 9 is not a octal digit.
Okay.
Correct. Correct. So, but that was just to illustrate the fact that int can take variable number of arguments, or rather these are arguments with optional, these are functions with optional arguments. Correct. So I wanted to illustrate optional arguments, and I'll tell you why in a minute why range is not a good example. But and you can guess. Correct. Can you guess? Can you tell me why range is not a good example for this? So range ijk, why is this not a good example? Can somebody tell me?
Sir, because if you give the default value for I is from 0, but if you give range of j comma k, it will
yeah. So the default for a single this thing is j. So if you have a single argument, this I becomes a j. Don't get confused by this. The semantics changes. Range 1 comma 100 1 comma 10 comma 1 is the same thing as range 1 comma 10, but is not the same thing as and is the same thing as range sorry, I should say 0. So 0 comma 10 is the same thing as range 10. So here you see there's a change in the semantics. Correct. 0 comma 10, this takes this value. Correct. So don't get confused by this. This is not a good example to multiple arguments, even though it works okay. It works okay, meaning it's how it's defined.
Sir, I have a question in that int, sir.
Which one?
Give int, when we give int in quotes 9 comma 8, why does it give an error?
Because 9 is not an octal digit. In octal, you have digits from 0, 1 to 7, correct? 9 does not occur there. 8 does not occur there.
Sir, but if we give int of in quotes 113,
Huh?
it will print out 113, right? Or at least it will give 113. The
Is it?
integer 113.
Comma 8.
Not 8, sir. Without any
Huh.
any.
So it will print out the number 113. Yes.
Sir, but the default basis, the default radix is 10, right?
Yes.
But 113 is not like a digit in the decimal system. So
113 is not a yes. So even if you say int 99,8, that will give an error. In 99, this digit is not a octal digit. This digit is also all the digits must be in that radix. Must be definable in that radix. Must be valid digits in that radix, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, that said, yeah, and there is also this notion of named variables, correct? So you can say, if you have this definition, def f a is equal to this, b is equal to whatever, c is equal to something else, correct? You can say f of 100 comma c is equal to something, and b is equal to whatever. B is equal to a string. Now, what would this evaluate to? This would evaluate to f100 comma something comma a string comma something. Correct? So these are named variables. You can use the variables in the definition as names. And you can even say f100 comma another. And now this would by default be B, this would be A, and the C would be missing. And you can say, or you can even say C is equal to this, correct? No, what am I saying? Yeah. You can, if you say this, then it would print, it would evaluate f100 comma whatever the default value for B was, which is whatever comma another. Am I making sense?
So could you please once more explain the definition of f and the function callings?
So I have not defined the function. I've just given the header of the function, correct?
Okay.
Def f a b c, where now I can define the function something. I mean, you can, for example, print ABC. You want to complete this, you can say print A, print B, print C. Correct?
Okay.
Whatever. No, on different lines, whatever. You understand? I mean, it's not important what you do with the values, but now when you interpret the values, you can use both the names, this B, and you can also use the default values. Correct?
Okay.
Correct. One thing to remember is that order is that the ordering is important. You cannot give a default value to, you cannot write fa is equal to something and b and c are not. So, so the default values are from the right hand side.
Okay.
No, sir, I didn't understand what you can't do. You said,
You cannot do this.
no, like on the left hand side when you're defining.
So I'm saying you cannot say A is equal to 1 and then not give default values to B and C.
Oh,
If you
okay.
give a default value to A, you must give these some default values.
Yes, sir.
Now it is correct. Correct? And then you can use the default values in whichever way you want.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Okay. So,
So can I do something like f of b is equal to something, c is equal to something, and then just a?
B is equal to something. This is the definition or call?
No, like passing in the arguments, not the definition.
A is not named, correct? A doesn't have a default value, it's not named.
Yeah.
So you cannot do A, you cannot give A last. You have to give it first.
Okay.
And then the other arguments you can give as.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. More questions? So one thing which I must remind you at this point is that we are going to have regular quizzes. And next time you can expect a quiz. Okay. So whatever I have covered till now, which is, I mean, basic, simple Python syntax, that will be part of the quiz. Correct? Are you with me?
Sir, sorry, sir. When did you say the quiz would be, sir?
Next week.
Okay, sir.
And I have been known to be lazy in doing these things, but I hope that this time I won't be lazy and I'll give you quizzes at regular intervals.
So in class time only?
In class time. So there'll be short quizzes, short and simple quizzes, just to jog your memory and to induce you to keep attending the classes and reading the notes and so on and so forth. Correct? Now, one more thing, the assignment should be up soon, the first assignment. And yeah, so yeah, that's another thing. The assignment will be up soon. And you should check the Moodle, this thing to know what is happening, correct? So there'll be a posting on Moodle, which will probably be sent as an email to you, but in case it bounces or something, you will know it from Moodle. Correct? Questions?
Sir, I had a question regarding tuples. So in if we can have tuples of lists, right? So I tried changing the value of a list. Like if I have a tuple, say 1 comma list 1 2 3. Yeah, if I do the t of the t of 2 of 0 is equal to 4, something like that.
But you can change the elements inside the list, but you cannot change the list itself, the name of the list.
Okay.
That's correct, na? So what you are saying is if you take L is equal to 1 2 3 and you take is that correct? First you tell me whether it's correct.
Yeah.
You do dictionary of L is equal to something. Does this raise an error? I don't think it does.
No. I was saying a tuple, sir. T is equal to 1 comma L, something like that.
Okay, 1 comma L. Okay, fine.
So if I say T of 2 of 0 is equal to 4. No. Tuple, sir.
Or sorry, tuple. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No dictionary.
Oh, just the tuple.
Yeah.
In dictionary, it will give an error. Yeah. Okay. So you have a tuple t is equal to 1 comma L.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did t of 1 of 0 is equal to 4.
T of 1 of 0 is equal to 4. Yes. That will work.
Yeah, but why is that?
Because this tuple points to something which you cannot change. This tuple is basically this points to 1, this points to L. Now you cannot change L from here, but L itself you can change.
Yeah, okay.
So L points to, L was a list initially that pointed to 1, to, L was this. L pointed to this, and this had 3 items, 1, 2, and 3, and you could change what is inside this, but you cannot change this pointer. That's my understanding. Okay. More questions? And I don't think you can give, if you do D of T is equal to something, D, this will not work. Just check it out. Return an error. Tell me, does it?
So 1 second. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Okay, good. Okay, so that's all for today.
So why does this not work? This last thing is just said.
This thing, because T is now no longer so because this T is not immutable.
Oh, okay.
It contains something mutable inside it.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Sir, the quiz will be on next Thursday.
The quiz will be on next Tuesday, probably.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Sir?
Yeah, tell me.
So will you upload the yesterday's lecture and today's lecture
I
recording?
uploaded yesterday's lecture yesterday only. I mean, last Tuesday's lecture yesterday.
Yeah, but we didn't get it.
You did not get it? Why? Did anybody else say?
Sir, it's not visible in the playlist. Could you also add it to the playlist? Like,
oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I added it. Okay, I will add it. I will add it then.
Okay, sir.
Thanks for pointing it out. You should have sent me a. Somebody asked me to upload it, and then I uploaded it, and then I forgot about it. So if it doesn't appear, just tell me. Correct? Just send me an email.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
So what will the format of the quiz be? Will it be?
Sorry?
So will the quiz which you're going to take, is it going to be a Moodle or something?
I have not decided yet. We will see.
Okay.
Yeah, we will see. Okay. Okay, thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.